Alright, let's talk this out and figure out some things. Welcome back to Street Scores. It's your boy Rico giving y'all an off-season edition of Redskins Report. Today's topic, Redskins options at quarterback for 2019. That means free agents, draft, trade, in-house, whichever way we can get it. Now let's get it. Let me start off with all of the background information on how we got in this situation. And a good place to start is that we traded for Alex Smith and extended him through the year 2022. He is on a 4-year, $94 million contract with a $27 million bonus. $55 million are guaranteed upon signing. Pertaining to this video, Washington paid $40 million of the dollars in the first year of the contract, and the last $15 million will be paid in 2019. Alex Smith currently hits the Redskins cap with a $20.4 million for 2019. If he were to be cut this year, he would hit for an additional $17.7 million, which is the remaining portion of his unclaimed signing bonus, which will result in a $36.6 million dead money charge on the cap. That is $36.6 million worth of cap hit that is not being used, for those who don't know. As of right now, we have $19 million in projected cap space for the 2019 season, and we still have Preston Smith and Jamison Crowder as unrestricted free agents, and releasing Alex Smith would leave us with less than $2 million worth of cap space to get them two signed. That is crazy. Now, for those who don't know the reason we are in this to cut or not to cut Alex Smith's situation, it's because he suffered a possibly career-ending injury against the Texans on November 18, 2018. He suffered a compound fracture, which means the bone broke the skin. He suffered a spiral fracture in his leg, which means that his long bone was broken by rotational force. It was a very awkward fall. And not only was he out for the remainder of the 2018 season, but he is also looking very doubtful for the 2019 season. Many even speculate that he may never play again. And even if he is fully healthy and ready for the 2020 season, he will be 36. 36? A lot of what he does deals with his underrated athleticism and mobility. That will not be very present in this game by age 36. And with him still not having a great grasp of the playbook and chemistry with Jay Gruden before he got hurt, and not having his athleticism to bail him out, he'll likely struggle. So let's look at how the Redskins can handle this quarterback conundrum with all of this dead cap. And no, releasing him is not the answer. That is too much dead cap coming this season. We'll pretty much just be deciding to go 0-16. But we actually can't escape his contract if he retires, but I highly doubt he'll do that. We can start by looking at some draft prospects first. The most polarizing and media heavy quarterback prospect coming into this draft is Oklahoma quarterback Kyler Murray. He's very athletic and mobile. That's what makes him pop. Many people view him as the biggest playmaker since Michael Vick. He is very accurate anywhere short to intermediate, and he can do it in the pocket and on the run. Can make just about any throw within that range. But he is also a good runner that can make big plays with his legs, but he is also safe with the ball and manages his hits well. He will slide or get out of bounds to avoid hits. And he's good at protecting the ball when he runs too, as far as fumbling goes. But then he is very small for the quarterback position. Like way too small. Not only is he too short at around 5'9", he is also too skinny with his frame, weighing about 190 pounds, which is more than 10 pounds lighter than Russell Wilson. This is his biggest glaring negative by far. This makes me afraid of him taking any hits. He is good at getting down or out of bounds to avoid hits, but the times he will get hit would give me a mini heart attack every time. Also, him being short makes it hard for him to see over offensive linemen who are usually 6'4" and above. Brandon Sheriff is 6'5", Trent Williams is 6'5", Chase Roulier is 6'4". He's got to see over those towering people. But he'll find lanes and openings similar to how Drew Brees does and Russell Wilson. He also needs to work on his progressing through reads better, but that can be improved in the NFL with time, coaching, and practice. And then like I hinted earlier, he needs to work on his deep ball accuracy. But all in all, he would be a generational quarterback if it weren't for his small size. Literally the only thing holding him back from obviously going first in this draft is the fact that he is so small. I highly doubt he'd fall to the 15th pick, besides makes mocking him very difficult. Then there's Dewayne Haskins, who was also a lock to be taken in the first round. But unlike Kyler Murray, Haskins is the ideal size for a quarterback at 6'3" and 220 pounds. An entire 6 inches taller and almost 30 pounds heavier than Kyler Murray. His positives also include a big arm an advanced level of reading through progressions, accurate in short to intermediate range, and just like Kyler Murray, is well poised in tough situations and big moments. His negatives are that he isn't good at improvising. He doesn't throw well on the run. He is also overly cautious. He will not throw it to an open receiver down the field and instead throw it to a safer option underneath. He doesn't make any mistakes, but he also doesn't make big plays either. And even though he is black, he can't scramble very well. He has some mobility, especially while in the pocket, but scrambling and making big plays with his legs is not what he does. He also needs to work on his mechanics. Some of it has to deal with his throwing motions, but most of his mechanical errors come from his footwork. Dewayne Haskins is not making it out of the top 10 picks for all of the QB needy teams out there. So the Redskins, if they want him, will have to trade up. And that's a whole nother video worth discussing about the different trade packages throughout history that it takes to trade up to get a quarterback. I'll talk about that in a later video. And then I feel like Drew Lock is the next quarterback up. And even though I feel like he isn't worthy of a first round pick, no matter how bad a quarterback class is, there are almost 4 of them drafted in the first round every time. So it's safe to assume Drew Lock will go sometime in the first. Hopefully not to the Redskins. I hope the Miami Dolphins draft him before we even get a chance to, before we make that mistake. But let's start with his positives. He is also the ideal size for the quarterback position. He is 6'4" and 225 pounds. He also has a big arm. He is very poised in the pocket and keeps his eyes down the field even through pressure. He has also shown that he can make just about any throw in the field, short to long distance. He can throw an accurate deep pass with touch only where the receiver can get it while under pressure. He can also scramble some, but his negatives scream inconsistency. He has the ability to make every pass on the field and has also shown it on film, but he is wildly inconsistent with his accuracy. He is also inconsistent with his ability to progress through his reads. He also struggles with decision making, and his mechanics are even inconsistent, which is why he is inaccurate a lot of the time. He needs to work on his turnovers also. All in all, he's the guy with all of the potential and tools, but I'm afraid he won't be able to put it all together and do it consistently enough to win NFL games. Then there's several other quarterbacks in the draft like Daniel Jones, Brett Rippon, Will Greer, Tyree Jackson, and many others. They all come with several positives and negatives. Some are limited by their lack of athleticism or arm strength. Many others are athletic but lack accuracy, mechanics, decision-making skills, and many other sorts of problems that scare me away from drafting them early in the draft. These other quarterbacks either have negatives that outweigh their positives or have a lot of untapped potential that may or may not ever be reached. Now let's talk about the available free agents. And I want to talk about the free agent that I would prefer to sign the most to start it off. Teddy Bridgewater. He was only a $5 million cap hit for the Saints last year and may be willing to sign a fairly cheap deal, or at least an incentive heavy deal similar to the one he had with the Saints, where how much money he made depended on how many yards and touchdowns he threw for. But he would be expected to start if he were to play for the Redskins, so that may be wishful thinking. But let's talk about why he'd be a good fit. Bridgewater is very similar to Alex Smith in many ways, which is great for Jay Gruden, who was really riding for Alex Smith and how his skill set was great for Jay Gruden's system. Teddy is obviously athletic and can make plays with his legs. He can scramble and throw on the run, or he can get all of the yards with just his feet. And also, just like Alex Smith, he can be overly cautious a lot of the time. He is great at protecting the ball, but also seems allergic to making big plays down the field and taking risks, just like Alex Smith was most of the games he started last year. But if the Redskins defense can actually become the real deal, and if the offensive line and Darius Geis can stay healthy to give Bridgewater a dominant running game, then Bridgewater's risk-averse play style could win games. And you never know, maybe Jay Gruden and the gang can get some big-time throws and deep balls out of Teddy Bridgewater if they encourage him enough, and then get him to actually win some games with his arms and not just his legs or his ability to not turn the ball over. And his best season was with Adrian Peterson as the running back. Pairing them up again would probably bring the best out of him again. And last time they were together, they won the NFC North. Let's see if they can win the NFC East together. Next up is Nick Foles. And his situation is weird because as of right now, he is a free agent, but the Eagles can franchise tag him and then either keep him or trade him. They have till March 4th, 4 p.m. Eastern time to franchise tag him, if they plan to. But as of right now, he is not franchise tagged, which is why I'm analyzing him in the free agency section of this video. But moving on, Nick Foles will probably be the most expensive option for the Redskins in free agency. Not only did he win a Super Bowl for the Eagles 2 seasons ago, and win a playoff game for the Eagles the following year against arguably the best defense in the league in the Chicago Bears. But he also hit the Eagles salary cap for more than $13 million, with $5 million of it being guaranteed money. So he's expecting a big payday wherever he goes, especially if the team plans on having him start day one. Now, why is he a good fit? Nick Foles just wins, man. Carson Wentz is the better talent, obviously, but Nick Foles runs the Eagles offense very efficiently. He is not the most accurate. He doesn't have the biggest arm. He isn't the most mobile. He isn't the best decision maker, but does enough of all of those to win. And he doesn't fold under pressure. Very clutch. He is always ready for the big moment. For some reason, I don't know where it came from. He is Mr. Big Game. The clutch game-winning drives. He's willing to take risks down the field. He plays with confidence. And he also has an infectious energy that makes his teammates feel they should and will win. When he's under center, Eagles players feel like they can win no matter how dark the situation. Before the game-winning drive against the best defense in the league, the Bears, he told his Eagles teammates that he was going to score for them, and they had all of the confidence in the world that he actually would. And then he did. He makes plays when he needs to. He can be risk-averse when he needs to. He's not very consistent, but he wins games. And not just by game managing. He leads game-winning drives, converts third downs, converts fourth downs, leads game-winning field goal drives, whatever it takes. But as great as he sounds, he is going to be a very expensive option. Now let's look at Tyrod Taylor. He's another option. He is fresh off of a $16 million year for the Cleveland Browns. He looked great in training camp and in preseason, but then couldn't put it all together in the regular season before he was replaced by Baker Mayfield after suffering a concussion in week 3. And he never earned his starting role back after Baker Mayfield balled out. And with how much money he is more than likely expecting, the Browns will not re-sign him. He will be a free agent. Now, how would he help the Redskins win games? He is a very athletic and mobile quarterback. More mobile than Teddy Bridgewater and Alex Smith. Far more mobile than Alex. He gives our offense a dynamic that we've only seen from Josh Johnson and RG3 in his rookie season. Now, he's not as fast as Robert Griffin, but he is definitely a better playmaker with his legs than any of the quarterbacks I've already talked about in this video, except for Kyler Murray. Jay Gruden could draw up plays similar to what Robert Griffin was running and keep defenses on their toes, not knowing whether he would throw or run. Also, he is very good at protecting the ball, not throwing interceptions. And he is also very good at converting third downs, and his intermediate passing game, 10 to 19 yards down the field, is his sweet spot. But he also has some negatives. Like his deep passing game is a struggle. He takes more sacks than he should or need to from holding the ball too long or not getting rid of it out of bounds when he clearly should. He also struggles in the red zone from his inability or reluctance to throw into tight windows. And in the red zone, almost every window is a tight window, with there being a very limited amount of field left to work with. So just like Alex Smith and Teddy Bridgewater and draft prospect Dewayne Haskins, Tyrod is good at protecting the ball, but also protects the ball too much and does not make any big plays or provide much of a deep threat. Now, we could sign him to a very cheap deal and let him be the bridge quarterback, similar to how the Browns treated him with Baker Mayfield. We can either draft a quarterback early or late in the draft, or sign a cheap free agent and let Tyrod mentor whoever the quarterback we're trying to groom will be. Now the remaining free agent quarterbacks will be discussed in shorter time. Starter with Ryan Fitzpatrick, who not only is already 36 years old, but is also a live and die by the wrist type of quarterback. The Brett Favre without the Hall of Fame talent. The exact opposite of Alex Smith, Teddy Bridgewater, Tyrod Taylor, and Dewayne Haskins. Pretty similar to Colt McCoy. Ryan Fitzpatrick is either going to win you the game or lose you the game. He's Colt McCoy, but like ×3. He's either going to throw a lot of touchdowns or a lot of interceptions, or even do both and give you a nail biter till the end. You don't know what you're going to get from him any given game. The only thing you know, he's going to sling that football around the field. It's going deep. It's going into good coverage, maybe even double coverage, and it can be a dime to where only the receiver can catch it, or a crazy interception in the triple coverage where you're looking at him like, why did you even try to throw that? I definitely feel like he is not the type of quarterback Jay Gruden would want in his system. That's why Colt McCoy was so frustrating for him in that Cowboys game last year. And Ryan Fitzpatrick is an even bigger risk taker than Colt McCoy, like I just previously said. So Jay Gruden would just be having heart attacks all over the place. But at least Ryan Fitzpatrick is very cheap. He's coming off of a $3.3 million contract, but I still don't want him. And to round up the list of the remaining notable free agents, 38-year-old Matt Schaub, 29-year-old Robert Griffin III, 28-year-old Tom Savage, 26-year-old Kevin Hogan, 37-year-old Matt Castle, 28-year-old Geno Smith, 35-year-old Brandon Wheaton, and many other free agent quarterbacks out there that's not really worth listing. But there's a lot of very cheap options out there to hold us over until next season, but there's definitely no permanent solution in there that will lead us to the Super Bowl unless there are all of the right circumstances present. But let's move on to these trade possibilities, which are looking very dark. But then there's always Colin Kaepernick, who's an open free agent, but I'm not going to dive into that again. Trade-wise, there's many options out there, just not really good ones. We can start with Ryan Tannehill of the Miami Dolphins, who was only a couple of years removed from being the Dolphins franchise quarterback. Injuries and lack of development have led him down a dark path to being on the trading block. The Dolphins obviously are looking for a new quarterback in this year's draft, and they currently have Ryan Tannehill on an expensive deal where he is making at least $25 million each year for the next 2 years. That's a trade that the Redskins can't afford, and Ryan Tannehill is not a great quarterback. He never reached his potential. This trade would be terrible for the Redskins. If we were to trade for Ryan Tannehill and keep Alex Smith, we will be paying those two a total of over $40 million. An injury-prone Ryan Tannehill will probably get hurt again, and we will have Colt McCoy on the field with almost $50 million in dead cap being dedicated to hurt quarterbacks. This trade is terrible, and I only talked about this trade so that people know it should be out of the question. I had to include it in the video. Then there's Denver Broncos' Case Keenum, who is Mr. Average, not good, not terrible, and he's on a $21 million contract. Just crazy. Hella overpaid. His only real accomplishments were leading a great Minnesota Vikings roster and miracle play to Stephon Diggs to the NFC Championship. Now he's on the Broncos, and they already know they want to take a quarterback in this 2019 draft after only having him start for 1 year and going 6-10. And unlike Ryan Tannehill, Case Keenum is at least healthy most of the time. So he wouldn't be dead cap, but he would be some wasted cap. Next, then there's Blake Bortles and Andy Dalton, who are in similar situations to Case Keenum. Teams that are drafted in the top 11 of the 2019 draft that already have a starting quarterback that they don't really believe in and are willing to take a quarterback in the first round and maybe even trade up to secure the bag when doing so. But as a Redskins fan, I don't want to get anywhere near these two quarterbacks. Please leave them alone. They would need to give us a first round pick for us to take that cap space off their hands. If we trade for Blake Bortles, they got to send us Blake Bortles, their first round pick, and we'll send them a bag of peanuts and a thank you note. And the last trade option out there would be Derek Carr. The Raiders had a lot of rumors coming out where they wanted to move on from Derek Carr. It was a very confusing season with a lot of turmoil, and Derek Carr was brought into it. But now those rumors are back and burning, with a lot of draft analysts mocking quarterbacks to the Raiders. They picked 4th in the draft and are in excellent position to take either Kyler Murray or Dewayne Haskins, with the 3 teams above them not needing quarterbacks. The Cardinals have rumors of wanting Kyler Murray because of Cliff Kingsbury, but he's come out and halfway said that Josh Rosen is his guy. But either way it goes, worst case scenario, and with nobody trading up past them, they will be in perfect position to take Dewayne Haskins if they want to. So they may want to trade Derek Carr away, but they will be asking for a lot. Probably a first round pick or at least a second. And Derek Carr would hit us for at least $19 million in cap space for each year for the next 4 years through 2022. So we'd be stuck with him for a long time, and he would eat up a lot of cap space while he's here. But if we were to get the almost NFL MVP season out of him consistently, it would make us look less stupid. But again, paying over $40 million in cap in 1 year to 2 quarterbacks and only one of them can play, and the other one has a history of getting hurt, would be crazy. That's more than what we would have paid Kirk Cousins. But enough of all of these outside options. Let's look at some in-house possibilities. Starting with Colt McCoy. He is on his last year of his contract going into 2019 as a $3.5 million cap hit. He is a very cheap option. He is loved amongst many of the Redskins players and fan base. His gunslinger mentality offers a refreshing but oftentimes disappointing counter to Alex Smith's conservative playstyle. I look at it like this. When the Redskins roster is stacked and is very good, Alex Smith has the skill set and playstyle to manage games enough to win, like a 6-3 start for example. But when the Redskins roster is depleted by injuries or lacks talent, Colt McCoy is the better option for slinging us to some wins. Alex Smith struggles with a bad team, and Colt McCoy is a little bit too risky for a good team. It's just an ugly situation. The Colt McCoy we got against the Cowboys in October 2014 is what we want. But there's also the November 2018 Colt McCoy that can throw 3 interceptions in an 8-point loss. It's just hard to trust him for a 16, hopefully more, game season. I prefer him as our backup quarterback who can come in and bring some energy and hope when the starter goes down. But maybe he needs to roll through the punches of starting multiple games in a row in order to actually get better. Don't really know, honestly. But again, I prefer him as a backup. Then there's Josh Johnson, who came in at the end of the season and gave us a lot of hope. He let us down with that killer interception against Tennessee in the last game of the season. But as I've explained before, it's not fair for him to be judged off of what he accomplished in a couple of games. Not only did he have no chemistry with the offensive line or receivers, but he also did not know the playbook at all. He had no first team reps in the offseason. He had no reps at all. He was on the couch, watching, chilling. No training camp, no mini camp, no offseason. And almost the whole offense was hurt. The top 2 receivers were hurt. The offensive line was super hurt. It was just tragic for my boy Josh Johnson. The odds were stacked against him, and he still managed to show some flashes of hope and put together some nice scoring drives and even win us a game against the great Jacksonville defense. He may not be the best thing since sliced bread, but I would love to see what he can do with an off-season worth of preparation, a fully healthy roster, and some added help like some new receivers through the draft or free agency. I'd honestly think we'd have something cooking. In conclusion, there are a lot of options out there, but I never said that there will be a lot of good ones. There's a lot of terrible options out there. But beyond how good or bad options are on the surface, what you determine as a good or bad option primarily depends on whether or not you feel the Redskins are a good quarterback away from making some real noise in 2019, or are they better off building towards making a real Super Bowl effort in the 2020 season? And I'm leaning towards the latter. I definitely don't want to tank and throw away the entire season. Because first of all, tanking in the NFL doesn't work as well as people think. And tanking is miserable for the players and coaches on a team. And I've seen them put in so much work, time, sweat, and pain just to go out there in meaningless game efforts. But I also do not want to put all of my chips into an ugly dead cap full 2019 season with many holes everywhere on the team. Like quarterback, as we are discussing of course, and left guard, both free safety and strong safety, wide receiver, linebacker for now, and cornerback. I want them to play as hard as they can and win as many games as they can and play the 2019 season with pride. But Super Bowl expectations are just heartbreak waiting to happen for 2019. I personally want the Redskins to give Josh Johnson a real chance to make things shape. I saw the Redskins were working on re-signing him, and even though he was drafted by the San Diego Fleet in the AAF, he hasn't played with them. But for the Redskins, if he plays well and proves he can be our franchise quarterback, then we win and have a very cheap franchise quarterback that we should lock up long term. If he doesn't pan out, we can draft one of those great quarterbacks coming out in the 2020 draft like Jake Fromm, Tua at Alabama, and many others. And then there's Trevor Lawrence in the 2021 draft. But back to Josh Johnson, I really want to see if once he has been given the tools and the time to succeed, the same amount of time and the same roster as Alex Smith was given at the beginning of the season, whether or not Josh Johnson will come through and make some noise in the NFC East. And did I forget to mention he is cheap? We already are in the hole for $20 million for a quarterback who will not play and can't afford to pay another one too much money. Then re-signing players like Preston Smith, Jamison Crowder, and HaHa Clinton Dix this offseason, and then eventually Chris Thompson, Brandon Sheriff, Matt Ioannidis, and Mason Foster in the 2020 free agency will become even more difficult if we give a quarterback a big paycheck. Our cap space situation is in a hole, and I do not want to dig it deeper than it already is. Just sign somebody cheap, preferably Josh Johnson, or we can get Teddy Bridgewater, Nick Foles, or Tyrod Taylor for the super cheap, which I highly doubt. And let's see what we can make shake in 2019 and be ready to hit 2020 real strong. But I just told y'all how I feel. How do y'all feel about the situation? Who do you want to start for the Redskins in 2019? Do you want a long-term option or a short-term one? Do you want to find a starting quarterback through the 2019 draft? If so, how early? First round or later? Or do you want the Redskins to trade for a quarterback or find one in free agency, or like me, use an in-house option like Josh Johnson or Colt McCoy? But that's it for this off-season episode of Redskins Report. Thanks for the view. I'm going to keep bringing y'all occasional updates on the Redskins throughout this entire offseason from December to August. This will include roster moves, draft prospects, scouting reports. I got y'all back. I will be coming out with a mock draft soon after the combine, after I learn a few things from some of these people. But make sure y'all get in them comments and let me know how y'all feel about this topic. And while y'all at it, make sure y'all Dolomite fake punch that like button, favorite, subscribe, I'll subscribe back. And most importantly, comment and share. And again, thank y'all for the support. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out. Please subscribe.